Attributes of an Arahant. The teaching of Buddhism is practical and emphasizes things that lead to insight and well-being. Buddhism does not encourage conceptualizing and debating over things that should be realized through practical application, unless it is necessary for basic understanding. In relation to the study of Nibbana, rather than discussing the state of Nibbana directly, it may be of more value to study those persons who have realized Nibbana, as well as the benefits of realization apparent in the life and character of such persons. We can gain some insight into the nature of Arahants by looking at the epithets used for them in the scriptures. Here is a selection of these epithets which express appreciation for their virtue, purity, excellence, and degree of spiritual attainment. Anupata Sadata, one who has attained well-being. Arahant, worthy one, a person far from mental defilement. Aseka, one who has finished training, a person not requiring training, a person possessing the qualities of an adept, Aseka Dhamma. Kata Kara Niya, a person who has done what had to be done. Kina Sawaka, a person free from mental taints, Sawa. Mahapurisha, a person great in virtue, one who acts for the welfare of the many folk, one who has self-mastery. Ohitabara, one who has laid down the burden. Paramakusala, a person possessing superior wholesome qualities. Parikina Bhava Samyojana, one who has destroyed the fetters, Samyojana, which bind people to existence. Samadana Vimuta, a person released through consummate knowledge. Sampanna Kusala, a person perfected and wholesome. Uttama Purisa, a supreme person, a most excellent person. Vusita Want or Vusita Brahmacharya, a person who has fulfilled the holy life. Many other terms were originally used by other religious traditions, but their meaning was altered to accord with the essential principles of Dhamma Vinaya. For example, Arya or Arya Pugala, a noble person, an excellent person, a person who has developed non-violence towards all beings. Originally, this term referred to members of the first three castes, or to those who are noble, Aryan by birth. Brahmana, a true Brahmin, a person who has passed beyond evil by abandoning all unwholesome qualities. Originally, this term referred to members of the highest caste. Dakinaya, one worthy of offerings. Originally, this term referred to those Brahmins who were worthy of a reward for conducting sacrifices. Kevali or Kebali, a whole person, a complete person. Originally, this term referred to the highest individual in the Jain religion. Nahataka, one who has been ceremoniously bathed, one who has bathed in the Dhamma, one who has purified his or her volitional actions, kama, one who is a refuge for all beings. Originally, this term referred to a Brahmin who passed through a ritual of bathing and was elevated in status. Samana, a tranquil person, one who has quelled the defilements. Originally this term referred to renunciants in general. Vedagu, a person who has arrived at knowledge, one who is well versed in knowledge and who is released from attachment to feeling, Vedana. Originally this term referred to a Brahmin who had finished studying the 3 Vedas. To understand the nature of an Arahant, it is necessary to consider the epithets in the context of the teachings in which they are mentioned. For example, the 3 tenets, Asava, the 3 trainings, Sika, the 10 qualities of an adept, Sekadhamma, the 10 fetters, Samyojana, and the holy life, Brahmacharya, as the 8-fold path. Many Buddhists tend to describe the attributes of an Arahant or of other awakened beings from a perspective of negation, by determining those defilements that have been abandoned or dispelled. For example, a stream enterer has eliminated the first 3 fetters, Samyojana. A once returner has eliminated these 3 fetters and further attenuated greed, hatred, and delusion. A non-returner has eliminated the first 5 fetters. An Arahant has eliminated all 10 fetters. Alternatively, they define an Arahant briefly as one who is without greed, hatred, and delusion, or one who is free from defilement. Such definitions are useful in that they are clear and provide simple standards of evaluation, but they are limited. They do not clearly demonstrate the exceptional characteristics and prominent features of awakened beings, nor do they describe how such beings live virtuous lives and benefit the world at large. In fact, there are many terms and passages describing the characteristics of an Arahant in affirmative ways. Many descriptions or explanations of Arahants, however, cover a wide range of subject material, making it difficult to summarize the positive attributes in a clearly defined, well-ordered way. Otherwise, they recount specific incidents and individuals, but do not describe attributes common to all Arahants. An important term in this context is Bhavitata, which is literally translated as one who has developed himself, or one who is self-developed. This term is used for all Arahants, the Buddha, the silent Buddhas, Pacceka Buddha, and all Arahant disciples of the Buddha. For example, in the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, while the Buddha is travelling to the place of his final passing away, he is referred to as the developed one. Surrounded by and amidst the group of monks, the Buddha travelled to the river Kakutta and bathed in and drank from its clear, bright, clean waters. He travelled to the mango grove and said to the bhikkhu Kundaka, "Lay out an outer robe folded into 4 layers for me to lie upon," and thus prompted by the great adept Bhavitata, Kundaka quickly laid out an outer robe folded into 4 layers. A similar expression is found in the question by the Brahmin student Metagu. "Blessed One, I wish to make an inquiry. Please tell me the meaning." I will thus consider the Venerable Sir to be a master of knowledge, Vedagu, a fully developed one, Ba Vitata. From where does all this abundant and diverse suffering in the world come? The Buddha compared a fully developed one, an Arahant who is well versed in the Dhamma, Bahusutta, to a clever ship captain who is able to guide many people across the seas and reach their destination in safety, as is illustrated in the Nava Sutta. Just as one who boards a sturdy boat fully equipped with oars and barge pole, who is experienced and skillful, knowing the methods of hillmanship, is able to assist many others to cross over the waters, so too one who is a master of knowledge, Vegayu, and a fully developed one, Bhavitata, a highly learned one, Bahusutta, stable and unshaken by worldly things, endowed with wisdom, is able to help those who are prepared to listen in order to investigate the Dhamma and to reach fulfillment. The Loka Sutta is similar to the previous sutta but covers a broader subject matter and is evident from the following passage. Monks, these three kinds of persons appearing in the world appear for the benefit of many, for the happiness of many, for the compassionate assistance of the world, for the welfare, the benefit, and the happiness of devas and human beings, which three. Here the Tathagata appears in the world. He is the noble one, the fully enlightened one, perfect in conduct and understanding, the accomplished one, the knower of the worlds, the peerless trainer of those to be trained, teacher of gods and humans, the awakened one, bestowed of the Dhamma. He teaches the Dhamma, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. He reveals the holy life of complete purity, both in spirit and in letter. Monks, this first kind of person, when appearing in the world, appears for the benefit of many, for the happiness of many, for the compassionate assistance of the world, for the welfare, the benefit, and the happiness of devas and human beings. Furthermore, there is a disciple of that same teacher who is an Arahant, one whose mind is free from the taints, liberated as a consequence of thorough knowledge. That disciple teaches the Dhamma, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. He reveals the holy life of complete purity, both in spirit and in letter. Monks, this is the second kind of person, when appearing in the world, who appears for the benefit of many, for the happiness of many, for the compassionate assistance of the world, for the welfare, the benefit, and the happiness of devas and human beings. Furthermore, there is a disciple of that same teacher who is still in training, still practicing, erudite, engaged in virtuous conduct and practices sila vata. That disciple also teaches the Dhamma, beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, beautiful in the end. He reveals the holy life of complete purity, both in spirit and in letter. Monks, this is the third kind of person, who when appearing in the world appears for the benefit of many, for the happiness of many, for the compassionate assistance of the world, for the welfare, the benefit, and the happiness of devas and human beings. The teacher, the supreme seeker, is first in the world. Following him, the disciple adept Bhavitata, and then the disciple in training, Seka Savaka, still practicing, erudite, engaged in virtuous conduct and practices. These three kinds of people are supreme among devas and human beings. They radiate light, proclaim the truth, open the door to the deathless, and help to liberate the many folk from bondage. Those who follow the noble path, well taught by the teacher, the unsurpassed leader, if they heed the teachings of the welfarer, will put an end to suffering in this very life. Note, however, that this term bhavitata is most often used in poetic verses rather than in prose. This is most likely because it is concise and can be used easily in verse as a replacement for longer, more drawn-out terms and phrases. Another reason why the short term bhavitata tends not to be used in prose is because its meaning is not clearly defined. As there are not the same limitations in prose as there are in poetic composition, longer terms and phrases can be used for the sake of clarity. At this point, it is useful to ask what terms and phrases are used in prose instead of the term bhavitata. To answer this question, let us look at an explanation found in the Tipitaka, the 30th volume of the Tipitaka, the Kulani Desa, which is considered to be a collection of teachings by the commander and chief disciple Venerable Sariputta, elucidates some of the Buddha's suttas contained in the Sutta-nipata. One passage in the Kulani Desa explains the term bhavitata as it appears in the question by the Brahmin student Metagu, cited above. How is the Blessed One, fully developed one, bhavitata? Here the Blessed One has developed the body, bhavita kaya, developed moral conduct, bhavita sila, developed the mind, bhavita chitta, developed the wisdom, bhavita panya. He has developed the four foundations of mindfulness, the four right efforts, the four paths to success, the five faculties, the five powers, the seven factors of enlightenment, the eightfold path. He has abandoned the defilements, penetrated the unshakable truth, realized cessation. Now let us look at a prose passage by the Buddha describing the four areas of development, bhavita, which are considered an expansion on the concept of a developed one, bhavitata. Monks, there are these five future dangers as yet unarisen that will arise in the future. You should recognize them and make an effort to prevent them. What five? In the future there will be monks who are undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom. Despite being undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom, they will give full ordination to others, but will not be able to guide them in higher virtuous conduct, adi sila, higher mind, adi chitta, and higher wisdom, adi panya. These ordinees too will be undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom. They in turn will give full ordination to others, but will not be able to guide them in higher virtuous conduct, higher mind and higher wisdom. These ordinees too will be undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom. Thus monks, through corruption of the Dhamma comes corruption of the discipline. and from corruption of the discipline comes corruption of the Dhamma. This is the first future danger as yet unarisen that will arise in the future. You should recognize it and make an effort to prevent it. Again, in the future there will be monks who are undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom. Despite being undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom, they will give dependence to others, but will not be able to guide them in higher virtuous conduct, higher mind and higher wisdom. These pupils too will be undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom. They in turn will give dependence to others, but will not be able to guide them in higher virtuous conduct, higher mind and higher wisdom. These pupils too will be undeveloped in body, morality, mind and wisdom. Thus monks, through corruption of the Dhamma comes corruption of the discipline, and from corruption of the discipline comes corruption of the Dhamma. This is the second future danger as yet unarisen that will arise in the future. You should recognize it and make an effort to prevent it. This aforementioned teaching by the Buddha is connected to some essential Dhamma principles. Bhavitatara is a word of praise, guna pada, a term describing the virtue or superior quality of the Buddha and the Arahants, as those who have developed themselves and completed their spiritual training. When one expands on the meaning of this term into the fourfold development of physical development, bhavita kaya, moral development, bhavita sila, mental development, bhavita citta, and wisdom development, bhavita panya, this pertains to the teaching on the four kinds of cultivation: bhavana, cultivation of the body; kaya bhavana, virtuous conduct; sila bhavana, the mind; citta bhavana, and wisdom, panya bhavana. Here one needs to know some fundamentals of the Pali language. The term bhavita is used either as an adjective or an adverb, describing the qualities of an individual. The term bhavana, on the other hand, is a noun describing an action, a principle or form of practice. There is a compatibility between these terms in that bhavita refers to someone who is engaged in bhavana. Therefore, one who is developed in body, bhavita kaya, has engaged in physical cultivation, kaya bhavana. One who is developed in virtuous conduct, bhavita sila, has engaged in moral cultivation, sila bhavana. One who is developed in mind, bhavita citta, has engaged in mental cultivation, citta bhavana. And one who is developed in wisdom, bhavita panya, has engaged in wisdom cultivation, panya bhavana. This is equivalent to saying that an Arahant is one who has completed the fourfold cultivation. He or she is accomplished in physical cultivation, moral cultivation, mental cultivation, and wisdom cultivation. To clarify this matter, here is a brief description of the four kinds of cultivation, bhavana. 1. Physical cultivation, kaya bhavana, physical development, to develop one's relationship to surrounding material things, including technology, or to the body itself, in particular to cognize things by way of the five faculties, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, skillfully, by relating to them in a way that is beneficial, does not cause harm, increases wholesome qualities, and dispels unwholesome qualities. 2. Moral cultivation, sila bhavana, development of virtuous conduct to develop one's behavior and one's social relationships by keeping to a moral code, by not abusing or injuring others or causing conflict, and by living in harmony with others and supporting one another. 3. Mental cultivation, citta bhavana, to develop the mind, to strengthen and stabilize the mind, to cultivate wholesome qualities like loving kindness, compassion, enthusiasm, diligence, and patience, to make the mind concentrated, bright, joyous, and clear. 4. Wisdom cultivation, panya bhavana, to develop and increase wisdom until there arises a comprehensive understanding of truth by knowing things as they are and by gaining a clear insight into the world and into phenomena. At this stage, one is able to free the mind, purify oneself from mental defilement, and be liberated from suffering. One lives, acts, and solves problems with penetrative awareness. When one understands the meaning of bhavana cultivation, which lies at the heart of the aforementioned ways of practice, one also understands the term bhavita, developed, which is an attribute of those who have completed their spiritual practice and fulfilled the 4 kinds of cultivation. 1. Physical development, bhavita kaya. This refers to those who have developed the body, that is, they have developed a relationship to their physical environment and to their physical bodies. They have a healthy, contented, and respectful relationship to things and to nature. In particular, they experience things by way of the 5 senses, say by seeing or hearing, mindfully and in a way that fosters wisdom. They consume things with moderation, deriving their true benefit and value. They are not obsessed or led astray by the influence of preferences and aversions. They are not heedless. Rather than allowing sense stimuli to cause harm, they use them for benefit. Rather than being dominated by unwholesome states of mind, these individuals nurture wholesome states. 2. Moral development, bhavita sila. This refers to those who have developed virtuous conduct and developed their behavior. They act virtuously in regard to society by keeping to a moral code and living harmoniously with others. They do not use physical actions, speech, or their livelihood to oppress others or to create conflict, but instead they use these activities for self-development, for assisting others, and for building a healthy society. 3. Mental development, bhavita citta. This refers to those who have developed their minds. As a result, their minds are lucid, bright, spacious, joyous, and happy. The minds are full of virtuous qualities like goodwill, compassion, confidence, gratitude, generosity, perseverance, fortitude, patient endurance, tranquility, stability, mindfulness, and concentration. 4. Wisdom development, bhavita panya. This refers to those who have trained in and developed wisdom, resulting in an understanding of the truth and a clear discernment of things according to how they really are. They apply wisdom to solve problems, to dispel suffering, and to purify themselves from mental impurities. Their hearts are liberated and free from affliction. A noteworthy passage in this sutta is where the Buddha states that those monks who have failed to develop their body, virtuous conduct, mind and wisdom will become preceptors and teachers, but will be unable to guide their pupils to higher virtue, higher mind and higher wisdom, i.e. in moral conduct, sila, concentration, samadhi and wisdom, panya. It is interesting that when describing the qualities of a teacher, the Buddha mentions the 4 kinds of development, bhavita, but when he describes the subject of study, the teaching or the principles of practice, he mentions the threefold training of moral conduct, concentration and wisdom. In full, these are referred to as the training in higher virtue, adi sila sika, the training in higher mind, adi chitta sika, and the training in higher wisdom, adi panya sika. This distinction may raise several doubts. First, why doesn't the Buddha use complementary or corresponding terms here? Wouldn't it have made more sense for him to say that one who is not developed bhavita in the 4 ways is unable to guide someone else in the fourfold cultivation, bhavana, or conversely, one who has not completed the threefold training is unable to guide someone else in moral conduct, concentration and wisdom? Moreover, the factors in these teachings are nearly identical. The dual teaching on cultivation, bhavana, and the attributes of development, bhavita, contains the 4 factors of bodhi, virtuous conduct, mind and wisdom. The threefold training, on the other hand, contains the factors of virtuous conduct, concentration, i.e. mind, citta, and wisdom. Therefore, wouldn't it have been less confusing if the Buddha had stuck to one or the other of these 2 teachings rather than combine them? Many Buddhists are familiar with the sequence of practice of sila, samadhi and panya, and this threefold practice is considered to be complete in itself. They are generally unfamiliar, however, with this extra factor of body, kaya, and may wonder why it is added and what it means. Here let us simply conclude that the Buddha presented these 2 distinct teachings in the same context. In reference to the attributes of a teacher, he mentioned the 4 aspects of development, bhavita, while in reference to the subject of teaching, he mentioned the threefold training, sika. A simple short answer for why the Buddha used these 2 distinct teachings in the same context is that they have different objectives or goals. The teaching on the attributes of a teacher aims to describe the discernible characteristics of a teacher in the manner of evaluating whether someone has completed spiritual training and is ready to teach others. The teaching on the subject of study, on the other hand, aims to describe the content and system of practice, to describe what and how to train in order to obtain desirable results. Most importantly, a true study or training entails a natural process of developing one's life. This process occurs with laws of nature, and therefore the systems of training must be established correctly in harmony with causes and conditions found in nature. Let us first examine the subject of study, i.e. the threefold training. Why is this training composed of only 3 factors? Again, one can answer this simply by saying that this training pertains to the life of human beings, which has 3 facets or 3 spheres of activity. These three factors combine to make up a person's life, and they proceed and are developed in unison. These three factors are as follows. 1. Communication and interaction with the world. Perceptions, association, relationships, behavior and responses with other people and external objects by way of the Dvara, the doorways or channels, which can be described in two ways. A. Doorways of cognition, Pasa Dvara, the eye, ear, nose, tongue and body combined with the meeting point of the mind. These comprise 6 doorways. B. Doorways of volitional action, Kama Dvara, body and speech, combined with the meeting point of the mind. These comprise 3 doorways. This factor can be simply called interaction with the world and represented by the word sila, conduct. 2. The mind. The activity of the mind, which has numerous attendant factors and properties. To begin with, one must have intention, also referred to as volition, deliberation, determination, or motivation. Moreover, people's minds usually contain positive and negative qualities, strengths and weaknesses. The mind experiences feelings of pleasure and discomfort, ease and disease, and feelings of indifference and complacency. There are reactions to these sensations like pleasure and aversion, and desires to acquire, obtain, flee, or get rid of, which influence how one experiences things and how one acts. For example, whether one looks at something or not, what one chooses to say, and to whom one speaks. This factor is simply called the mind, citta, or the domain of concentration, samadhi. 3. Wisdom. Knowledge and understanding, beginning with sutta knowledge, acquired through formal education or by way of the news media, up to and including all forms of development in the domain of thought, cinta visaya, and the domain of knowledge, jnana vasaya, including ideas, views, beliefs, attitudes, values, attachments to various ideas and forms of understanding, and specific perspectives and points of view. This factor is called wisdom, panya. These 3 factors operate in unison. They are interconnected and interdependent. A person's interaction with the world by way of the sense faculties, by way of the doorways of cognition, and through physical and verbal behavior, factor number 1, is dependent on intention, feelings, and various other conditions in the mind, factor number 2. And this entire process is dependent on the guidance by wisdom and intelligence, factor number 3. The extent of one's knowledge determines the range of one's thoughts and actions. Similarly, the mental factors of, say, determination and desire, factor number 2, rely on an interaction by way of the sense faculties and physical and verbal behavior, factor number 1, in order to be fulfilled and satisfied. And this process is determined and regulated by one's beliefs, thoughts and understanding, factor number 3, which are subject to change and adjustment. Again, the operation and development of wisdom, factor number 3, depends on the sense faculties, say of seeing or hearing, depends on the movement of the body, saying of walking, seizing, organizing, seeking, etc., and applies speech to communicate and inquire, factor number 1. And this process relies on mental properties. For example, interest, desire, fortitude, perseverance, circumspection, mindfulness, tranquility, and concentration. Factor number 2. The nature of human life is comprised of these 3 interrelated, interdependent factors. They comprise an integrated whole which cannot be added to or subtracted from. As life is comprised of these 3 factors, any training designed to help people to live their lives well must address the development of these 3 areas of life. Spiritual training is thus divided into 3 sections, known as the Threefold Training. This training is designed to develop these 3 areas of life to be complete and in harmony with nature. These 3 factors are developed simultaneously and in unison, resulting in an integrated system of practice. From a rough perspective, one may see these 3 factors in a similar way as to how they are sometimes outlined in the scriptures, of representing 3 major stages of practice of moral conduct, concentration, and wisdom. This perspective gives the appearance that one practices these factors as distinct steps and in an ordered sequence. That is, after training in moral conduct, one develops concentration, which is then followed by wisdom development. By viewing the threefold training in this way, one sees a system of practice in which 3 factors are prominent at different stages, beginning with a coarse factor and leading to more refined factors as one progresses through the stages. The first stage, moral conduct, gives prominence to the relationship to one's external environment, to the sense faculties, and to physical actions and speech. The second stage, concentration, gives prominence to a person's inner life, to the mind. The third stage, wisdom, gives prominence to knowledge and understanding. Note, however, that each stage the other 2 remaining factors always function and participate. This perspective provides an overview in which one focuses on the chief activity at each stage of the process. One gives prominence to each of the 3 factors respectively, so that the coarser factors are ready to support the growth and promote success of more refined factors. Take, for example, the task of cutting down a large tree. First, one must prepare the surrounding area so that one is able to move about easily, freely, and securely, equals sila. One must prepare one's strength, courage, and mindfulness, resolve, non-distractedness, and skill in handling an axe, equals samadhi. Third, one must have a proper tool, like a good quality sharpened axe of the correct size, equals panya. If one fulfills these 3 requirements, one succeeds in cutting down the tree. In regard to one's regular daily life, however, a closer analysis reveals that these 3 factors are constantly functioning in an interrelated, interdependent way. Therefore, in order for people to truly engage in effective spiritual practice, one should encourage them to be aware of these 3 factors. They should develop these factors in unison by including skillful reflection, yoniso manasikara, which helps to increase understanding, and mindfulness, sati, which helps to bring about true success. In regard to one's spiritual practice, no matter what activity one is involved in, one is able to inspect and train oneself according to the principles of the Threefold Training. One thus aims to engage in all 3 of these factors, virtuous conduct, concentration, and wisdom, simultaneously and in all situations. When involved in an activity, one considers whether one's actions result in the affliction or distress of others, whether they cause harm or whether they are conducive to assistance, support, encouragement, and development of others equals sila. During such activities, what is the state of one's mind? Is one acting out of selfishness, malice, greed, hatred, or delusion? Or is one acting, say, with kindness, well-wishing, faith, mindfulness, effort, and a sense of responsibility? While engaged in an activity, is the mind agitated, anxious, confused, and depressed? Or is it calm, happy, joyous, content, and bright? Equals samadhi. When engaged in an activity, does one act with clear understanding? Does one discern its purpose, objective, and related principles? Does one recognize its potential benefits and drawbacks and fully understand the way to adjust and improve the activity? Equals panya. In this way, skilled persons are able to train and inspect themselves and evaluate their practice at all times and in all situations. They cultivate all three factors of the Threefold Training in a single activity. Meanwhile, the development of the Threefold Training from the perspective of three distinct stages unfolds automatically. From one perspective, a person develops the Threefold Training in an ordered sequence, but from another perspective, the simultaneous unified practice of these three factors is taking place and assisting in the successful advancement of the so-called three-stage training. In this context, someone who delves deeply into the details of spiritual practice will know that at the moment of awakening, at the moment of realizing path, fruit, and nibbana, all 8 factors of the Noble Path, which are classified into the 3 groups of sila, samadhi, and panya, are completed and operate as one, acting to eliminate the defilements and to bring about fulfillment. To sum up, the system of Buddhist spiritual training, the Threefold Training Tiso Sika, is based on a relationship between requisite factors and accords with specific laws of nature. Human life is comprised of 3 factors of conduct with the outside world: sila, mental activities, citta, and understanding, panya, which act in unison and are interdependent in bringing about spiritual development. When describing the principles of spiritual practice, the Buddha referred to these 3 aspects of training, sika. We now arrive back at the question, why did the Buddha adopt a new model of the 4 factors of development, bhavita, when he described the attributes of a teacher? As mentioned earlier, this question can be answered easily by saying that these 2 models have different ends and objectives. The Threefold Training is to be applied in real life, to be practiced in accord with a system in harmony with nature. Factors of development are intended for self-examination. Here one need not be concerned with the order of nature. The emphasis here is on getting a clear picture of one's personal qualities. If one discerns these clearly, they will by their very nature be connected to the 3 factors of training. This is obvious in inspecting the first factor of sila, which refers to one's interaction and communication with the world, one's apprehension of the world, and one's actions in relation to the world. As mentioned above, we interact with the world by way of 2 sets of doorways, dwara. The first set entails the doorways of cognition, pasadvara. usually referred to as the sense faculties, indriya, or awareness of the world by way of the eye, ear, nose, tongue and body. The second set entails the doorways of volitional action, kamadvara, through which we act towards and respond to the world, towards people, towards society, and towards other objects in our external environment by physical and verbal gestures. Here lies the distinction in regard to interacting with the world at any one moment, or to speak at a more refined level, at any one mind moment. We only communicate with the world through one of the specific doorways, and one can examine this process by applying either of the two sets of doorways. In respect to the Threefold Training, in which Sila, Samadhi and Panya are part of an integrated system, the interaction with the world by way of any one of the various doorways comprises the training in conduct, Sila. The factors of the mind, Samadhi, and understanding, Panya, constitute distinct factors. The entire interaction with the world through the various doorways, both the doorways of cognition and the doorways of volitional action, is included here in the factor of Sila. For this reason, the Threefold Training is comprised of three factors. In respect to the attributes of a teacher, one need not consider the integrated functioning of the three factors contained in the Threefold Training. Here one is distinguishing between different factors for the purpose of investigation. It is precisely here that at the factor of conduct, Sila, where a separation is made. That is, one distinguishes a person's interaction with the world according to one or the other of two sets of doorways. A. Doorways of cognition, pasadvara, usually referred to as the sense faculties, indriya, the eye, ear, nose, tongue and body, along with the meeting point of the mind. These comprise 6 doorways. These doorways enable seeing, looking, hearing, listening, smelling, tasting, and tangible contact, culminating at the mind as cognition of mental objects, Dhamma Ramana. B. Doorways of volitional action, Kama Dvara, body and speech, along with the meeting point of the mind. These comprise 3 doorways. These enable physical actions and speech, and by designating the starting point of volitional action, the mind, this also includes thinking. The Buddha separated these 2 subsidiary factors of conduct, Sila, determining them as the first 2 factors in the 4 kinds of development, Bhavita. He distinguished the first factor of interaction with the world by way of the doorways of cognition, or the sense faculties, and labelled it as development of the body, Bhavita Kaya. The term body Kaya here refers to the collection of 5 doorways, Pancha Dvarika Kaya. The Buddha thus gave great emphasis to one's interaction with the world, in particular to cognition, by way of the 5 senses. People tend to overlook this first factor, but in relation to spiritual practice, it is considered of paramount importance in Buddhism, especially in regard to measuring a person's development. This is particularly relevant to the present era, which is referred to as the Age of Information, or the IT age. The development of people in regard to this factor determines the fork in the road between direct wisdom cultivation and getting bogged down in delusion. This principle of physical development can be used as a sign warning people from losing their way and encouraging them to use information technology to advance civilization in a proper direction. In reference to measuring people's spiritual development, the second subsidiary factor of interacting with the world by way of the doorways of volitional action, Kamadevara, constitutes moral development, Bhavita Sila, and is equivalent to the second part of the training in higher virtue, Adisida Sika, mental development, Bhavita Chitta, and wisdom development, Bhavita Panya, correspond to the training in higher mind, Adichitta Sika, and the training in higher wisdom, Adipanya Sika, respectively. Note that this concept of physical development, Bhavita Kaya, which here has been defined as a development of one's interaction with the world by way of the five sense faculties, is sometimes explained differently by defining the term Kaya literally as the body or as referring to material objects. If one expands the meaning of Bhavita Kaya in this alternative way, then the definition of the second factor of moral development, Bhavita Sila, is adjusted accordingly as follows. Moral development refers to the cultivation of one's relationship to other human beings, or to one's engagement with society, to promoting peaceful coexistence, cooperation, harmony, and mutual support. These alternative definitions of these two factors are connected to the teaching on fourfold virtuous conduct, on the four kinds of pure conduct classified as virtue. Parishuddhi Sila 1. Patimokkha Samvara Sila. Virtue is restraint in regard to the Patimokkha, the chief disciplinary code of the monastic Sangha. 2. Indriya Samvara Sila. Virtue is sense restraint to receive sense impressions, like sights and sounds, mindfully, in a way conducive to wisdom and true benefit, and not to be dominated by unwholesome mind states. 3. Ajiva Parishuddha Sila. Virtue is purity of livelihood to earn one's living righteously in a pure manner. 4. Pachaya Pati Sevana Sila, or Pachaya Sani Shita Sila. To use the four requisites wisely, benefiting from them by understanding their true purpose and value, to know and consume in moderation, not to consume with craving. Those aspects pertaining to one's relationship to the world by way of the body, or to one's engagement with material objects and with nature, are part of the factor on physical development, Bhavita Kaya. Those aspects pertaining to one's relationship to society or to one's community are part of the factor on moral development, Bhavita Sila. Having introduced these principles, the following description of the attributes of Arahants corresponds to the teaching on the four kinds of development, Bhavita: physical, moral, mental, and wisdom development. Be aware, however, that although these four kinds of attributes are distinguished from one another, they are not completely separate. Their main features are highlighted for the purpose of understanding, but in the actual process of development, they are interconnected and are cultivated in an integrated way. In particular, they are never independent from wisdom.